clamor for truth. From the small groups who spread the message, the thousands who pray, to the roar of 10,000. Their call, people power, again. 22 years ago, Filipinos introduced People Power, a global model for nonviolent resistance and change. Every year we celebrate that moment, but at no other time has People Power seemed so alive as now. What happens in the coming days may help redefine People Power for our times. I'm Maria Ressa. Join me as we look back for lessons for our future in People Power Play. It was a defining moment for Filipinos, a peaceful revolt that ended the 21-year rule of Ferdinand Marcos.
My feeling is we all have to die sometime. If it's my fate to die by an assassin's bullet, so be it.
It started with Benigno Ninoy Aquino, a martyr who said the Filipino is worth dying for.
I really feel so cold, and I guess I'm very nervous. And this is exactly how I felt when you were arrested the first day of martial law.
A grieving widow who had the courage to stand up and demand the truth. And a nation that felt the pain of her loss. But that wasn't enough. It took another 3 years before the elements came together. Soldiers who mounted a failed coup and themselves became the hunted.
I am calling our people to support our coup.
A church that, in a dramatic turnaround, broadcast an appeal for the people to defend the soldiers. And the millions who answered that call, 4 dramatic days on EDSA that changed our history. People Power sparked democratic dreams globally, from South Korea, Pakistan, China, Burma, East Germany, and nearly a decade later in Indonesia. 22 years later, an unlikely figure is sparking calls for People Power again. Rodolfo Jun Lozada calls himself a provincianong in Chick, but he is also a philosopher with a sense of right and wrong that has captured the imagination of most Filipinos. In a society where black and white have become gray, his sense of permissible greed, a 22% kickback, seems familiar. Few Filipinos expect perfection nowadays, but what they hate more are lies and hypocrisy.
I have to travel, so I take it you're not going to the Senate today? No, but you're aware of a subpoena.
It began on January 30th when Lozada boarded a flight to Hong Kong at the instigation, he said, of Malacanang. The reason? This insider to government deals wanted to avoid testifying at the Senate because he said he would not lie. He returned to the Philippines on February 5, but before he could meet his family, he was picked up, kidnapped by armed men, he said. Later, the men would be identified as members of the PSG and the PNP. In the 24 hours Lozada disappeared, many began to fear for his life. On February 7th, he dramatically reappeared at this 3 a.m. press conference, he said for one reason, to tell the truth.
Maraming nang mabubuting tao na pipilitan pa na magsinungaling dahil sa akin. No? Hindi naman sila kasama rito, napipilitan pa silang magsinungaling. Ayoko maging dahilan na magkaroon pa ng magkasala sa Diyos at sa bayan, kahit sino man. And sometimes it's worth taking a risk. For this country.
with the permission of Senator Madrigal, who's turning this.
A day later, Lozada testified at the Senate and shocked the nation. He said his kidnappers drove him to Cavite and that he feared he would be salvaged, like Bobby Dacer.
Nung narinig kong sa Dasmariñas, Cavite ko dadalhin, naisip ko si Dacer. Tapos nung nasa may Los Baños na kami, may natanggap silang tawag. Sabi ho nung nandun sa harapan ko, ibalik na raw ta. Napakainit na raw ng media.
His testimony triggered a political storm, painting a picture of corruption, collusion, and influence peddling on an obscene scale. So real, government denials ring hollow. He testified that former COMELEC chairman Benjamin Abalos demanded a $130 million cut for an eventual $329 million telecoms deal with China's ZTE corporation. That was more than double the usual kickback, said Lozada, who also implicated First Gentleman Mike Arroyo. In later days, he would hint that the order for the deal came from President Arroyo. Lozada said Cabinet Secretary Romulo Neri tasked him to moderate their greed, creating a picture of a den of thieves. Moderate your greed, exterminate your breed became the rallying cry for about 10,000 people who came to show their disgust. Lozada laced his testimony with phrases that have gained life. The Jedi choosing good over evil, his mea culpa for past sins, and why he moved from what he called the dark side to the light.